SEAL Admiral smirked at her rank. Shadow actual. Turned the war room into dead silence. So this is what they're sending us now. Admiral Hargrove's voice cuts through the Pacific Command war room like a blade scraping across metal. A contractor tag and a regulation bun. Tell me something, sweetheart. Did they run out of real analysts? Or did someone's admin assistant get lost looking for the coffee station? 43 people freeze. 43. 14 Navy SEALs still in their operational gear, salt-dried, smelling of cordite in the South China Sea. Boots caked in something that got onto boots on a deployment that officially did not happen. 11 senior analysts from the Defense Intelligence Agency, pens hovering mid-note above classified briefing packets. 12 Pacific Command staff officers arranged in a loose arc near the primary display wall, most of them holding tablets they have stopped looking at. 6 maintenance crew who were replacing a ceiling tile and are now standing motionless on their scaffold, looking down. The war room itself, a cathedral of screens and satellite feeds and hissing AC units, and the kind of institutional smell that every classified facility in every hemisphere shares. Some combination of cordite and gun oil and the specific chemical odor of air that has been recycled through security filters too many times has gone completely, surgically still. Admiral James Hargrove stands at the front of the room with his arms crossed like he owns not just this base, but the entire Pacific Fleet and 3 oceans on either side. 7 rows of ribbon sit above his left breast pocket. Not ribbon approximations, not ceremonial suggestions. The specific, rectangular grammar of a career built on making rooms go quiet and people go small. He is 61 years old, and he has never once in his career walked into a room without immediately claiming it. He has been in this building for 22 years in various capacities, and the building knows him, or he believes it does. Which is the same thing when everyone around you acts accordingly. When he steps toward her workstation, his shadow falls across her laptop screen. He holds that position for a moment. He lets it be what it is. She is 31 years old. She has a plain contractor lanyard. No rank insignia. A regulation bun that has not moved in 11 hours of travel from a flight she booked through a cover account. Hands that are currently reassembling a disassembled M110 sniper rifle with a grip angle. Wrists canted at 22 degrees. Fingers spaced at exactly 2.5 centimeters. That Rangemaster Rodriguez, standing 8 feet away and trying to look like he isn't watching, has only seen at 2 schools in his 24-year career. Both of those schools have names that don't appear on any publicly accessible curriculum. He watched her seat the buffer assembly with the specific, automatic precision of someone who has done this particular task in the dark, in water, in conditions where hesitation is a medical event. She did not look at her hands. She has not looked up at Hargrove. She has not flinched. She sets the final component into place. The weapon is complete. "Higher than yours, sir," she says. Her voice is level. Informational. Not combative, not deferential. The way of fact is neither of those things. You just don't know it yet. Then she picks up her pen and goes back to what she was doing. 3 seconds of absolute silence. Then Hargrove laughs. The kind of laugh that is also an instruction, that invites everyone in the room to join in and makes the cost of not joining uncomfortably visible. Most of them join in. Because 43 people and 11 hours into a briefing cycle and a rear admiral performing amusement is a social signal with the weight of an order. The SEALs exchange grins. 2 of the DIA analysts suppress smiles. Someone near the back of the room makes a comment about admin badges that gets a scattered chuckle from the people close enough to hear it. In the far left corner of the war room, partially obscured by a rack of SIGINT processing equipment, Command Sergeant Major Leonard Briggs does not laugh. He is 63 years old and 37 years into a career that began in a jungle he is not permitted to name and has taken him to 17 countries whose involvement he is similarly not permitted to discuss. 37 years has taught him, above almost everything else, to pay attention to what other people walk past. He is watching the woman at the contractor's station. He noticed the rifle grip before she had the barrel seated, not learning, not approximating. The muscle memory of someone who has assembled that specific weapon under specific conditions a number of times that practice alone cannot explain. He has been in the company of people with that kind of muscle memory. He knows what they were asked to do. He knows what it costs. He has not moved. His pen stopped moving. His jaw has tightened by a degree that most people in this room would not notice, and that he is not going to explain to anyone. He adds it to a picture he is already beginning to build, and the picture is making him very careful and very quiet. Something about this woman. He couldn't place it yet, but it was there. By 0600 the next morning, the story has improved in the telling. The version circulating through group chats and the mess hall breakfast line now has her claiming to outrank the Admiral specifically, has the weapon she was holding upgraded to something more dramatic than an M1-10, and has added an eye roll that nobody actually saw. Someone has given her a nickname that is not printable and has already propagated to the overnight shift and 2 forward operating stations via text. The mess hall version has a punchline. The war room version has a protagonist. She is eating a standard issue MRE at a corner table with her back to the wall and a clear sight line to both exits and the window and the corridor beyond it. The meal tastes like institutional efficiency. She eats with the economic movements of someone for whom this has never been an inconvenience. Someone for whom MREs are not a hardship, but a delivery mechanism for calories while doing something else. What she is doing while eating is listening, filing. Who defers to whom when Hargrove is not in the room versus when he is? Where the real intelligence flows, the informal channels, the sidebar conversations, the communication patterns that exist beneath the official briefing structure and carry the actual operational picture. She has been here 4 days. The picture is nearly complete. At 07:48, 11 minutes before the morning brief, she is back at her workstation. The monthly authentication panel requires a rotating 14-character alphanumeric code that changes at 0600 on the first of each month. Most analysts keep it in a secure note on their classified device. Most operators take between 4 and 7 minutes locating it and entering it. She enters it in 8 seconds without looking at the keyboard. Rangemaster Rodriguez, passing behind her station on his way to the briefing wall, stops walking. He stands for a moment looking at the back of her head. Then he continues to his position. He does not mention it to anyone. He files it. Her sleeve rides up when she reaches for her coffee mug. The inside of her left forearm, a tattoo. Not decorative, not a unit memorial. A compact, precise design, a stylized trident overlaid with a geometric sigil that has no publicly cataloged meaning, positioned on the inner forearm where it would be covered by standard long sleeves and visible only in this exact way. The design incorporates a classification designation so specific that the only people who would recognize it are people who have been to locations they are not permitted to discuss and done work they are not permitted to document. Rodriguez sees it. His pen stops mid-sentence. His face cycles through something, recognition cresting, and then immediately being pushed back down, like a man who has just seen something he wasn't expecting and is deciding how to respond to having seen it. He goes very still. His posture shifts by some small degree that is not quite standing at attention, but is not far from it. She does not look up. She controls her breathing. 4 counts in, Hold 4, 4 counts out, hold 4. The morning brief runs 3 hours. She sits at the edge of the analyst section and takes notes with a left-handed grip, slightly modified from regulation form. The kind of modification that appears in personnel with specific upper body histories and gets trained out of people who remain in standard roles and never gets trained out of people who don't. Briggs, across the room, is watching her write. He adds the grip to the picture. The picture now has enough detail that he knows he needs to decide something, and he is deciding it slowly, and he is not yet ready to finish deciding. 3 hours later, she is back at her workstation when a junior analyst drops a tray in the corridor outside the war room. The crash is sudden, sharp, the specific violence of metal on concrete. Every head in the room turns, every head except hers. Her hands don't stop. Her eyes don't move from the screen. Her shoulders don't shift by a millimeter. Briggs watches this from the corner. His pen stops moving for the 3rd time that day. He has been around enough people who have been in enough places to know what this looks like. The kind of stillness that doesn't come from temperament. The kind that gets installed somewhere, by something, that leaves marks. Her sleeve is long today. The tattoo is not visible. But he already saw it. He already knows what it means. Or he is close enough to knowing that the difference between knowing and close enough is just the courage to finish the sentence. He is finishing it slowly. A SEAL named Petty Officer Mackey, who has not spoken to her directly, but has been part of the ambient ridicule that circulates through group chats, passes her workstation at 12:15 and sets down a bottle of water without making eye contact. Not an apology, not acknowledgement. Something smaller and more honest, a man who has been watching her all morning and has started, quietly, to revise his reading. She doesn't react. She opens the water and drinks from it without looking up. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out, hold 4. By 13:10, she has mapped the complete informal power structure of this installation. She knows who Hargrove protects and who he uses. She knows which analyst leaves his terminal unlocked when he goes to lunch. She knows which corridor is never under camera coverage between 1400 and 1600, due to a maintenance cycle that has been in the schedule for 3 months. She knows which SEAL actually leads his unit versus which one performs leadership for Hargrove's benefit. She has been gathering this information while appearing to be the punchline. She has been doing intelligence work while appearing to be an isolated target. The audience watching her thinks they are watching a woman being humiliated. They are watching a woman build a case, not aggressively, just there, working, patient. At 13:40, Admiral Hargrove escalates. He announces it in the afternoon brief, with all 43 personnel present, in the pleasant voice of a man who enjoys the performance of procedure. Standard protocol for unverified contractor personnel. A glance in her direction. Miss, what was the name again? Reyes. Her voice is level. Dr. Elena Reyes. Right, Dr. Reyes. The honorific delivered with the specific intonation of a man who finds academic titles amusing when affixed to women in operational environments. Just a standard credential verification. Personnel security review. Shouldn't take long. He waves 2 staff officers forward. Make sure she's comfortable. She sets down her pen. She closes her laptop. She stands up, and something in the way she stands, the way a person stands when they have been expecting a door to open and it has now opened, makes Sergeant Major Briggs, across the room, go absolutely still. She follows the staff officers out of the room without looking back. The credentials room is concrete walls and a metal bench and a window near the ceiling that shows a narrow rectangle of late afternoon Pacific sky. The smell of industrial disinfectant failing to cover something older. Mildew, perhaps, or the specific chemical compound of fear that soaks into concrete over years of use and doesn't come back out? Lieutenant Caldwell, 26, 3 years into his career and genuinely uncertain whether he wants to be in this room, has the credentials file open on the table between them. Purpose of assignment to Pacific Command? Systems assessment. What systems specifically? Intelligence architecture. Who is your direct supervisor? The authorization is in the file. Caldwell looks at the file. The authorization is in the file. He looks at it for a long moment, then looks up at her, then back at the file. The authorization signature is above his clearance level. He can read the classification header, which is color-coded, and the color is one he has seen exactly twice in his 3-year career, both times in passing, both times in the vicinity of people who were not introduced to him, and neither of those times did anyone encourage him to look directly at it. He closes the folder, opens it, closes it. Length of assignment? Until complete. Can you estimate? No. He looks at her. She controls her breathing. 4 counts in, hold 4, 4 counts out, hold 4. She is not looking at the door. She is not looking at her watch. She appears to be doing nothing at all, which is the most disciplined thing in the room. Caldwell writes something in his notes that he will later have difficulty explaining. He is not sure what it is. He closes the folder again and sits back and says, in the voice of a man trying to find the right bureaucratic phrase for what he has encountered, "I'll need to take this upstairs." "Of course," she says. She watches the sky through the window. Her watch reads 1847, military time. In 22 minutes, her 6-hour check-in window will close. The Defense Clandestine Service handler who holds her active file will register an unanswered check-in at 1909 and initiate a status inquiry, which is standard. In 63 minutes, the status inquiry will auto-escalate, which is also standard and also what she planned. The escalation goes to the commanding officer of JSOC, who has the authority to move assets and the disposition to do so quickly. In approximately 2 hours, Admiral James Hargrove is going to discover the operational difference between the authority printed on someone's credentials and the authority that has never needed to be printed anywhere. She set this in motion 3 months ago, when the first intercept came through suggesting a leak inside Pacific Command. She had planned for detention. She had planned for credential review. She had planned for the chain reaction that official process would create, because she has learned, over 11 years, that the most useful thing an antagonist can do is initiate formal documentation. The watch is still on her wrist. Nobody thought to take it. She had made a quiet note 3 months ago, to wear it on the right wrist where it would be less obvious. This is the near-fail moment, the point where anyone watching from outside would think she is finished, detained, credentials under review, surrounded by people who have decided they've caught something. Except games have rules, and she is about to demonstrate that they have been playing the wrong game entirely. At 20:57, Sergeant Major Briggs gets up from his logistics review and walks to the corridor outside the credentials room. He finds Lieutenant Caldwell in the hallway, holding the closed folder, staring at the door. "I would be very careful," Briggs says. His voice is not loud. It doesn't need to be. He has been using this voice for 37 years, and it has never once needed volume to land. Caldwell looks at him. Briggs looks back. His face has the expression of a man who has assembled a picture he did not particularly want to assemble, and is now living in the completed version of it. Then he turns and goes back to his station. And Caldwell stands in the corridor alone for another 30 seconds before he goes to find Admiral Hargrove. At 21:03, the War Room receives a priority-flagged communication from the Defense Clandestine Service. Hargrove reads it at his personal workstation. His jaw tightens. He reads it again. His pen stops moving. He reads it a third time, and his face does something. A cycling through expressions, each one replaced by a worse version of the next. As a man tries to locate in a communication from a very senior federal agency, something that gives him a way out of what the communication is describing. He does not find it. At 21:18, 3 vehicles arrive at the base perimeter, not standard transport. The configuration is specific, a combination of aircraft designation and ground vehicle classification that Pacific Command staff have collectively seen in briefings, but not in practice. Because the last time assets of this level landed at this installation was during an event that was classified within 4 hours of its conclusion and has not appeared in any formal record since. 4 men in service dress uniforms exit the first vehicle. 2 federal agents in plain clothes from the second, each carrying an identical black composite case. Then, from the third, a woman in a Joint Chiefs Liaison uniform with the kind of posture that belongs to someone who has never once in her career been kept waiting for anything. Hargrove, who has now moved from his workstation to the corridor outside the credentials room, goes pale. Not theatrical pallor. Not the performed reaction of a man who wants witnesses to see him being gracious under pressure. The specific, involuntary pallor of someone who has just understood the full architecture of what he has done and cannot find a single load-bearing wall he didn't already knock out himself. The liaison doesn't offer her hand. "Admiral," the Undersecretary sends his regards. "This installation is operating under a different protocol, effective immediately." Inside the credentials room, the door opens. Lieutenant Caldwell steps back against the wall, not told to, not ordered to, moving on the instinct of a man whose body has registered something his clearance level hasn't fully processed yet. He has been standing at something close to attention for the last 40 minutes. Not entirely sure why. Only that some things communicate authority below the level of words, and the woman on the metal bench has been communicating it since before she set down her pen. She stands. She does not rush. She picks up her bag, which contains a laptop, a classified drive, and a secondary weapon nobody searched for because the search didn't happen. She walks out of the credentials room into the corridor, and the 41 people in the war room beyond the corridor go silent in the way that rooms go silent when something is arriving that changes the meaning of everything that came before. Sergeant Major Briggs is in the corridor. He's been standing there for 3 minutes, not at his station, not pretending to have business elsewhere. Standing, waiting. The expression on his face is the expression of a man who has served for 37 years and has, over those years, learned to tell the difference between people who perform this work and people who are made of it. He looks at her for a long moment. His expression cycles through something complicated and private. Then it settles. His hand moves to his brow. The salute is precise, not approximately precise, not ceremonially precise, but exactly correct in every angular degree. The way something is correct when it matters to the person doing it, when it is a choice and not a command. He holds it. "Shadow actual," he says. Quietly. Not an announcement. A name. The name of something he has been looking at for 4 days and has only now said aloud. The room detonates. The gasps are real, involuntary, audible, the kind of sounds that trained operational personnel do not make and are currently making anyway, because the information arriving through their auditory processing has temporarily overridden their training. Someone drops a tablet. The clatter hits the concrete floor and bounces through the war room, and the echo moves through the stunned, airless silence like a gunshot, like punctuation, like an ending. The AC unit hum that everyone stopped noticing 2 days ago is suddenly the loudest sound in the room. A boot scuffs tile near the briefing wall. A chair scrapes concrete. A badge falls from someone's grip and skips twice on the floor. These small sounds fill the silence, and the silence fills the room, and the room fills with the specific, compressed weight of an institutional reckoning. Who else is watching this and thinking about every quiet person they've ever walked past? The Joint Chiefs Liaison's voice does not need to be raised. Admiral Hargrove, for the record and for the understanding of all personnel present, the individual you detained this afternoon, whose credentials you formally reviewed, and whose competence you publicly addressed during the morning briefing, is Commander Elena Reyes. Defense Clandestine Service, Special Activities Division. Call sign Shadow Actual. A pause that has weight. The architect of the Kandahar Protocol, the operative whose work directly enabled the extraction of 14 Allied intelligence assets from circumstances the public record describes as an embassy evacuation, and the classified record describes in language most of the people in this room do not have clearance to read. She holds Hargrove's gaze. Every person in this facility, including myself, answers to her operational authority when she is running an active mission. She has been running an active mission in this facility for 96 hours. The salute from the liaison is immediate, formal, the kind given on record for the record. The senior DIA analyst raises his hand, then the JSOC representative, then 3 of the SEALs simultaneously, with the specific automatic respect of people who have been trained that this gesture carries weight when it is given and weight when it is withheld. Then more, the cascade moving through the war room with its own momentum. Each salute generating the next, 41 people raising their hands to their brows in the specific grammar of institutional recognition. The 42nd person in this room is Admiral Hargrove. His hand does not move. The silence is a different kind of silence now. Not the silence of shock, but the silence of 41 people watching a 42nd person make a decision. His face is doing something he has perhaps not done in decades. Cycling through the stages of a man encountering a consequence he cannot manage, cannot redirect, cannot perform his way out of. Surprise. Denial. A deeper denial that is trying to locate an exit and finding only walls. His blood has gone cold. He goes rigid. A thing flickers across his face, just for a heartbeat. Then it's gone. Replaced by something that is not quite composure, but is the effort toward it. Petty Officer Mackey, who left the water bottle at her workstation 4 hours ago, has already raised his hand. He did it before the DIA analysts. He did it before the JSOC representative. The kind of man who revises his reading when the evidence requires it, and then acts on the revision without waiting to see what everyone else does. His hand moves to his brow. Slowly, the hand of a man lifting something heavier than he planned to lift. The angle is not quite right. His posture is not quite right. He is saluting correctly and entirely incorrectly at the same time, which is the only salute available to him now. She acknowledges it with a single nod. She has not changed her expression throughout any of this. She is already thinking about something else. The formal charges process quietly, without drama. The 2 federal agents who arrived in the second vehicle have been working the South China Sea intelligence leak for 11 weeks. 3 assets compromised. 2 field officers exposed in circumstances that nearly killed them. 1 intelligence officer who was extracted from Macau in a situation that officially didn't happen, and whose family has been told he's on an extended training exercise. Communication patterns traced through 11 weeks of procurement records, budget authorizations, and encrypted back-channel messaging to a source inside Pacific Command with a 7-row ribbon collection and a habit of performing for audiences. The source had been hiding in plain sight because no one thought to look at someone who performed authority so loudly. 4 days of her presence in this facility produced the last piece, the authorization she obtained for her own detention. The timestamps on the formal credential review, the documented communication patterns she observed from her corner table in the mess hall and her workstation at the edge of the analyst section. He did this to himself. His own official actions became the mechanism of his undoing. They always do with men like him. They always do. The arrest happens in a side corridor with 2 agents and no audience. He goes without making a scene. There is no scene left that belongs to him. By 05:17 the next morning, the sky over Pearl Harbor is moving from black through orange toward the specific purple gold of a Pacific dawn that doesn't owe anyone anything. She is standing at a small window on the 3rd floor of the operations building. A rectangle of sky visible through reinforced glass, the smell of jet fuel and salt air coming through a vent near her feet. Her watch reads 05:17. The mission file will be formally closed by 0900. 14 Allied intelligence personnel who have been operating in compromised positions for 11 weeks will receive updated protocols before noon. Sergeant Major Briggs finds her there at 05:31. He does not knock. He stands in the doorway with the expression of a man who has something to say and has been deciding whether to say it. "Kandahar," he says. I read the after-action report, the version they allow people with my clearance to read. She looks at him. "I didn't know it was you," he says. "I suspected after the tattoo, after the authentication code, after the way you held the rifle." He pauses. "I should have spoken sooner, before it went as far as it did." "You spoke when it mattered," she says. He nods once. He stays for a moment, and something passes between them that doesn't require words. The recognition of 2 people who have been doing this long enough to know what the other person's silence costs and to respect it. Then he goes. He doesn't say anything else. He doesn't need to. He saluted before anyone told him to. He chose it from knowing, not from obligation. That is the thing that will stay with her longer than the formal recognition, longer than anything the record will show. They mocked her rank. They forgot she outranked their corruption. She has known for a long time that silence is not absence, that the stillness of someone who does not need to prove anything is the most controlled power in any room. She has been standing still in rooms for 11 years while people decided what she was. And she has found, every single time, that what they decided said everything about them and nothing about her. Patience is not weakness. Justice is not loud. It is patient and specific, and it arrives on a timeline that belongs to it, not to the people it finds. The Hawaiian sky at 05:23 has moved fully into orange now. Somewhere below this building, Petty Officer Mackey is probably in the mess hall, drinking coffee, not talking about any of this. Caldwell is probably writing a report he doesn't know how to file. Briggs is probably doing what Briggs always does, sitting with something complicated and choosing, carefully, what to do with it. She opens a second file on her laptop. A satellite image, medium resolution, pulled from a routing pass over Damascus 3 months ago. A rooftop. A figure. The image is not high enough resolution to confirm what the signals analysts have been suggesting quietly to each other for weeks, that the figure matches a biometric signature attached to a name that appears on a list she's been carrying for a long time. The list has 11 names. 10 of them are closed. The 11th is still moving. Somewhere a figure stood on a rooftop in Damascus and knew her name and understood what was coming and is still out there. Tomorrow brings new ghosts to hunt. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to MVP Stories for more.